All right, hey everyone, Jeff here at stopthepirates.blogspot.com. So, in dealing with the police and judges and all these types of things, a couple things you need to understand. Never walk into a police station or court voluntarily. If you do, you traverse and acknowledge the validity of their jurisdiction. So, when you're confronted with an obligatory court appearance, keep in mind the following: everything is commercial contract being administered in a state of emergency under the War Powers Act. The Commerce Clause of the Constitution operates in the private international law merchant of the bankers, to whom essentially every government in the world is bankrupt. All of this functions in admiralty maritime, where you have no rights and the captain's word is law. Now you have the illusion. I mean, they like to euphemistically tell you that you're innocent until proven guilty here in America, but you're not. If you've ever been to one of these courts, you have one of two options. You can plead guilty or not guilty. And you can't prove a negative, so you're guilty. When you're charged, you're guilty. You're going to pay one way or the other. And the facts of the case have nothing to do with it. It was interesting. I was watching TV the other day, and they picked this guy up who looked exactly like someone else who killed a police officer. I didn't get the whole story, but what it boiled down to is they charged him. And they completely ruined the guy's life. And it wasn't him. It was just like his doppelganger. He looked exactly like this guy, same age. And they put his picture up, and it looked exactly like him. But he was charged and found guilty. But they later found out that he didn't do it. And they had to come back and go, well, he was factually innocent, which means, and there's people out there in the freedom community or whatever you want to call it, and will tell you the first thing you want to do when you go into a court is tell them you're factually innocent, factually innocent, factually innocent. Say that 3 times, and magically it'll get you off. I don't know. I've never tried it myself, but yeah, the facts are on the moon in any kind of a case, and all crimes are commercial. Because the corporation of the United States is bankrupt, you pledged, or your parents pledged you in all of your labor over your lifetime to pay the debts of this bankrupt corporation. That's your purpose in life. Now they want you to go to school and get a job, and you may be able to, work up to a management position to manage some of the other debt slaves. But in a system that's designed to extract your wealth over your lifetime, and hopefully do it just long enough to where they can reap the most benefit out of you, and then you die off around in your 60s. It's kind of, and that's kind of what's happened. That the life expectancy in the United States is really dropping right now, and people are really in bad health, and that has to do with a lot of different factors. I think food is one of them. They tell us that eating plants and fruit is healthy for us, but in my experience, that the opposite is true. I don't want to go off into a tangent on that, but most of what they call these commercial fruits and vegetables aren't actually healthy for you. But anyway, digressing. So we're under the Emergency War Powers Act. You don't have any constitutional rights under this either. When you listen to people in the patriot community, or whatever you want to call it, talk about the Constitution and all this stuff, it doesn't apply to you. You don't have any constitutional rights. As a U.S. citizen, you have certain benefits and privileges, and those can be taken away at any time. So military war powers enforce all interstate commerce, which is everything, with draconian penalties for impending commerce, because the climate in which we live is a relentless and ravenous assault from all aspects of the government against our commercial liability, i.e. revenue raising, enforced by guns, violence, and prisons. Life in America is a high-risk venture. It requires understanding of how to neutralize the endless barrage of attacks in the form of commercial presentments, and fighting is a no-win proposition. Matters must be neutralized, diffused, and transmuted into victory without conflict. I think as this corporation, the United States, gets further and further into debt, trillions and trillions of dollars, the debt will never be paid off. I mean, your unborn children, if you're going to have any, are massively in debt as soon as they're born. They're given a hepatitis B vaccination as soon as they come out of the mother's womb, which contains enough mercury to, you would have to be a 250-pound man to safely absorb that into your system. So it goes right to your brain, and you're basically hobbled from the time of birth, and you'll never be as smart as you might have been without being given all these handicaps. But in the end, they get what they pay for, because what they want is a populace of kind of unthinking drones that will go along with the program and get a job and, pay their taxes. And a lot of them to be used as cannon fodder in foreign wars. A lot of people don't know the United States is at war all over the world. It's the global war on terrorism. So what they do is they manufacture the terrorists, and then they send them into countries that they want to take over and say, look, we have to go in there for humanitarian reasons to stop these terrorists from, killing all these innocent people. And then you go in and you steal all their gold and their oil and everything. I'm not saying that's every case, but let's not be naive here about it. So we have no money, only private debt paper, insurance script. It's like monopoly money or casino chips. So operating in a bankruptcy, everything is commerce, which is banking, which is debt paper, which is credit, debit balances on bank books, which is bookkeeping. So when you're born, they set up this account for you. I'll be very, very general about it. And you have unlimited amounts of credit from which you can draw from, but you have to go through an intermediary, which is the bank, which has a monopoly on negotiable instruments. So if they deem you a good risk or a good debt slave, because what they're going to do when they make a mortgage to you or a loan is they're going to sell that obligation to someone else 20, 30, 50 times, whatever they want to hypothecate it, at least 10 times. Yeah, it's just book entries, and you'll never own any property as a U.S. citizen. The state owns all your property. If you don't believe me, look at the home that you think you own. You'll be listed as a tenant on the deed. So everything is assets, which are credits, and they always must equal the liabilities, which is the debits. The books must always balance for world commerce to operate. The commerce account must be cleared within 3 days, which is codified in the U.S. in the Federal Truth in Lending Act, Title 12, U.S.C. 1601, Regulation Z. So a traffic citation, summons, indictment, complaint, etc. is a commercial presentment. When the presentment is issued, a debt is created, a liability on the bank's books, which must be balanced with an asset. They want you to supply the asset in the form of paying a fine, some specific performance, or jail time. What's real interesting is when you get into what happens in the prison system, and of course there's more people in prison in this country than any other country in the world. More women are in prison now, and this is what's paying for all the foreign wars. And what's really fucked up is the prisons are publicly owned, publicly traded companies, which have gone into agreements with the United States government that they will build these prisons and run them for less money than what the government could do. But in order to do that, they have to mandate that the prisons will remain like 90% full, which they are. They're overflowing now. So the police just run around and just scooping everybody up. I know here in Los Angeles, they run about 2,000 people a day through their, just in LA County Jail. 2,000 people a day. It's just a massive, and then what you can do through distributing the methamphetamines, the cocaine, the heroin, all of the drugs, and there's a liquor store and a bar on every corner. You're given a dumbed down education, no real possibilities to get out of any perceived type of messed up situation that you're in. It's and at a certain point in a lot of people's lives, it just looks easier to than actually have to work a job and save up. And there's no way people now, when the middle class is getting shrunk down to allow them to be able to purchase a home, $500,000 or whatever. I mean, there's just no way. And they just think, hey, you know what? Fuck it. It'd probably be easier just to live in prison. And that's what they want. They want you in prison behind bars. And when you get in there, they pimp you out. And you don't really have a choice for, 10, 15 cents an hour or whatever they're going to pay you. Building, whatever they need for the military, or corporations can hire you out. I forget the name of it. But there's a company out there that kind of intermediaries for the prison system. And I did a video on this a while back called USA Corp or some shit. But they hire out prison labor to corporations. And that way they can compete with India or China, whichever they have the cheapest labor. So, yeah. Anyway, if you want to find out more about information like this, go to stopthepirates.blogspot.com. Thanks for listening.